This time on the Random Junk channel, we are going to open up the Black Raven Manor. You can see it does work. All the lights and the sound works too. This is from my display. It is a fully functional unit. I'm going to open it up to help show anybody out there that has a problem how to open it up. Now, I've never opened it before, so I don't even know. So we're going to do this process together. First thing we're going to do is move this stuff out of the way and turn on the additional lights. On this one, the circuit board is over here, standing straight up and down, right here. And then the motor that drives everything is up in here. You can see all this through this big window. And it's hard to see on the camera because the window just glares, but you can see the green circuit board. And then you can see the bulge right there for the motor. Well, probably for a pulley, because I believe the motor is farther in because it has this up here that spins as well, which in my display I don't have the spinning thing on it. I think they're bats or something, or ghosts. I don't remember, because in my display I don't like a lot of the things that rotate around the top of houses, so I don't attach them. But outside of that point, taking a look at it, we know that the bottom, which is normally how you access things, only basically gives you access to the circuit board, and I bet you the speaker's hiding over here too. The reason I say that is you can hear the noise better out of like this window than you can out of this window, because the circuit board acts as a baffle. Kind of helps deflect the sound. But taking a closer look at it, this top resin is glued to this plastic piece, which is then glued to the resin of the house. So I'm going to assume, also from seeing other people online talk about it, that this top comes off. Now, does it come off with the plastic plate, or does it come off with the plastic plate? I'm going to try and do it without the taking it off the plastic plate, because when I was just poking and prodding, if you take a blade screwdriver, at least on mine, it's not attached here on the front. There's no glue. There's nothing. Now, from right about here, all the way around to here is glue. But there's nothing in this front spot. So I'm assuming that was how they assembled it. I could be wrong. And that's why we're going to find out. But I was just poking into this glue area carefully, because when you poke, this flexes. And you don't want to break the plastic gutter. That's basically what it's imitating. So I was just poking around, seeing what I could feel. Seeing if I can feel any gaps, any separations. And every once in a while, I can get a little flex on the top. Like right there, you probably heard a little crack, which was the glue. So, I am going to heat up this area and see if I can start to get this to break free. Hopefully it breaks free from the plastic. Now, heating up it is going to allow the glue to break down, but it's also going to cause the plastic to get weak. So, you got to be really careful that you don't heat up the area too much and you distort this plastic gutter. So, I'm just going to do a small area up here in the front where I know there is no glue. So I'm going to go from the area that has glue and down the side. And I'm going to try and heat up the resin more than the plastic. So I have the heat nozzle pointed at the resin and not at the plastic. The plastic will get hot from, well, it's attached and the air is still blowing down. But I'm trying to heat the glue part first. The resin is more resilient to the heat than the plastic is. I'm getting some flex, as you can hear. This would probably be something you need to do with a heat pen, like what I'm doing here, or a one that's not attached to a station. I do not think a hairdryer is going to cut it, because I have this really hot to try and crack this glue. Just going to start warming up the entire area, because that last loud cracking sound, a lot of the roof shifted. So I'm going to start heating up the area just to allow a little flex in the glue. Be careful if you have a heat pen, whether it's one that's attached to a machine or independent, that you don't touch it when it's running, because of course it's hot. You're supposed to put it in a cradle, but I'm going to keep lifting it and using it, so I just have it setting off, pointing in a safe direction as well. It's not pointing at anything like myself or anything flammable, or can get burnt or destroyed, because I do have this set for 212 degrees Celsius, which is 400 and something Fahrenheit. So it's a little toasty, and I have it on a high fan and a small nozzle, so it pumps out some heat. So there. So looks like it's mostly separated now. I'm going to turn off the heater. And I'm going to put this over here where it's in its own cradle, safely away from getting on anything. Alright, so you saw in real time how long it took me to do this with the heater. And there you go. Once you pop it, you can see the glue, and where the glue is shiny, it wasn't actually adhered. There's no, the rough is where the glue was stuck, and the smooth is where the glue didn't. So, and you can see there's absolutely no glue stain in this front area. And then there's a gap right here, which is probably why I was able to get the screwdriver in here and here to start popping it up. So, this is how you get to the top. So do not try and remove the plastic plate, because you'll probably just damage the plastic from the heat. Just work on this resin. Now, if you think your house is going to break in the future, they always do, because they're mechanical, you can use hot glue in here versus hard glue, such as, you know, the Gorilla or super glues. Although a Gorilla and super glue you can heat up and it will re-break free. Heat has a tendency of separating lots of different things. So here is the mechanism. Here's the motor, here's the gearbox, here's another gearbox right here, which this one gear drives the big ghost cluster, and this drives the spinning thing on the top. So now why don't we take this apart so we can examine where the weak parts are. I can see in here it has a notoriously common gear to fail, which is normally used on the Ghost Rounds or the Roundup or the Christmas version, which I always forget the name of that one. But let's take a look at the drive mechanism, the gears, the whole thing, so you have an idea of what needs to be done if you have one that has failed or that needs to be serviced. Alright, so what's nice about this is these big gears rarely fail. They have a lot of meat and big teeth. So this gear is driven off of here, which then has an idler gear and then the gear that spins the ghosties. Now the ghosties, if you remove this plastic piece, there is, this is probably pressed on, it is. If you see this finger right here, that's a clip. That clip holds this shaft in place. So if you had to get in here and replace the ghost, the easiest way I would do it is to pop out the front window and then with a screwdriver pop the clip and see if you can get it to pivot inside without removing this plastic plate. If you have to remove the plastic plate, do it carefully, take the top off, then heat around the edge and pop this up carefully, because again, the ghosts are actually clipped here, and if you have this piece and look through the window, you will actually see the clip if you look up inside. So it's all stained. I'm surprised. Usually they're white like this or gray. This is all stained, but it's not doesn't wipe off. Probably a bad casting. So now I'm going to remove these gears. to take a look at them. And then of course, like all Lemax, there's probably a pulley with a belt on the bottom side of this plate. So we're going to see how we can access that. And since I'm doing it anyway, we're going to, you know, look at it, see how it looks, if it's worn down. So take the cover off carefully. You can see the 3 spots for the screws, and then the different height standoffs to put pressure on the shafts. So this one has the standard 10-tooth gear right here with a spacer bushing. So you got to be careful not to lose that, because this is like a top hat spacer bushing, where it has a flange right there. Kind of looks like a top hat from the profile. A lot of spacer bushings do not look like this, because this spacer bushing recesses inside of there. So careful, try not to lose any of the parts. This right here is the most common gear to fail in a lot of rotating things. You have the small teeth that then transfer to the large teeth gears, and the mesh, if anything binds up over here, like I said, these teeth rarely break because they're so massive, it snaps all these little teeth off. And I've been doing this for years, and I still cannot find this gear. I have no idea what the name is. Lemax will not tell me where they get their gears from. They're not very polite when I talk to them, because they do not like me working on their products. So if I ever find one, or a source that is made out of plastic, I have found these made in metal, I will let you all know. But at this moment, I've had no luck. These 2 gears are standard hobby gears right here. Same with the 10-tooth. I've mentioned it before. The Nokai packs that I buy have them. Here's my little bucket that you might have seen other videos with the same gears that these are. So the motor is probably just a 300 CA motor, which is a standard motor for most Lemax products. These pins, the armatures or the shafts, are stuck in the bottom, so you can pull the gears off and inspect the step and the outer on both. You can inspect the 10-tooth, which the 10-tooth doesn't turn very well because it's attached to a pulley on the other side of this plate. So now let's remove the next 3 screws and see what's under this plate. I should have a pulley, a belt, and another pulley. So 2 pulleys and a belt. And a wire, of course, for the motor. There we go. Oh, and this is really nice of them. It's a lifelong wire, and look at that. They even included a Molex style connector, so you can just unplug it and plug it in. Some replacement motors do not come with them, like this, where it's just 2 wires. Some replacement motors do come with them. So, but if they don't, you can just cut and solder, which I've done many a times, and if you watch a lot of my videos, you've probably seen it. But since this piece is original and I've never opened it, I might as well inspect the belt real quick just to see if I see any cracks in it. Now I'm using the light and I'm using magnifying glasses to check. Nope, the belt looks good. The reason I have my hand cupped is so the gears don't fall off. This motor does not have a part number stamped, printed, or etched into it, but it is probably like, oh no, there it is. Yep, it is a SRE 300CA. It's right behind this pin, this standoff, so it's hard to see. So it is the standard 300CA motor. Now, you do have 2 choices in the 300CA motor size. They come with a fast and slow RPM, which I'll link below. And it depends on how fast or slow you want your object to spin. Now remember, something that spins fast has less torque. Something that spins slow has more torque. Generally, I like to change the high mass items, that mean like the ghost around, to the high torque motor, so it spins a little slower, but it's more power to power through any issues it may have if it's trying to lift or lower as it gets fatigued. But the downside is with all that extra torque, if any of the moving items get caught, it's just going to snap all the teeth or spin the belt. Hopefully it spins the belt, but never been that fortunate, unless the belt's dry rotted. So. Now on this one, because there's nothing you can physically touch and hold and stop at the rotating items, unless you pop this glass out in the front or plastic, I personally, I would go with the high torque motor, and the reason I would is because of the transfer. You're going from all these little gears and you're stepping up these massive gears. The high torque motor will allow less drag. There's also one thing I've noticed differently about this than most other Lemax. There's no lubrication. There is no grease on any of these gears. This is all a dry setup, and there might be a reason for it. Possibly they don't want the grease to drip down inside and get onto the circuit board, which is directly below this, or they don't want the grease to drip down and get onto the spinning goes. If also, there's not a lot of access in here. The only hole is right here for that orange shaft. So dust, debris getting inside, like these windows down here that go in, and you can see the wiring in the circuit board, is less likely. Especially if you use a hot glue bead and seal this all the way around, there's really not an easy way for dust to get inside where the moving parts are. So now it's all speculation. I don't know if it's maybe mine's the only one that didn't come with grease, but I'm going to go based on just history and reason and why it might be the way it is. So don't forget the little top hat spacer. Make sure all the gears are in and it sits flush on the 3 studs. Grab the right screwdriver. And let's put this thing back together again. And I'm going to turn on my glue gun. I'm going to hot glue it back together because, just like everything, eventually this will fail and I'll have to open this up and change the belt or change a gear. And since I've already opened it, I might as well make it easier for me in the future than hard gluing it back together. I do not take my display down. It does not go in storage. It sits up all year round in its own dedicated room. And I don't move the houses. Maybe once a year I might use a feather duster on them or a compressed air. Unless something falls behind the house, like a tree in my display, they don't get moved. Or if the power supply or cable gets damaged, because unfortunately I did have roof rats once that got in and they chewed up some of my wires to my display, and I had to rewire a few of my houses because they chewed through this stuff and they chewed through the power, and I had to remove the houses to repair it. So one of the joys of living in the desert, roof rats are very, very common out here. Roof rats and fruit rats. Then I have a big old dog that's afraid of them. Figure that one out. So, all right. Just to show you that it still works, I'll plug it back in. And you should see the teeth move. Also, just on a side note, while I'm waiting for my hot glue gun to get warm here, is this little guy is articulated. You can move his arms and hands, and I actually have some charms that used to go around the bottom of wine glasses, and it's the exact same guy. So if this guy ever breaks or gets lost, the skeleton charms for wine glasses, at least the one I have, is identical. Everything's the same. Same height, same size, same paint job. So this probably isn't a Lemax specific piece. This is probably just something they had that they got from somewhere else, or maybe the charm was made by the same manufacturer in China that makes some of the parts for these houses. It's kind of not a big issue, but it does give you the idea that he's hot glued in place so he doesn't move. But mine, his arm isn't glued. The glue never stuck, so I can physically take his arm and have it hanging out like he's going to grab, or push it back where he's holding the banister again. This arm's glued, but it can still flex a little, and his legs are glued. Yeah. But I have an articulated charm. The only difference between my charm and this guy is the articulated wine glass charm. There's a little hole in his head for the brass wire that wraps around the bottom of your wine glass stem. Which is probably what this was, and then they just drilled it for the wine glass. see, is she? There we go. There she's nice and warm. And I'm going to run a bead around the top here. Apparently she's not warm enough yet. Give it another few seconds. So you should not really ever have to remove the bottom of this thing unless you need to access a circuit board, power port, or the speaker. And like most of them, you just peel this back or just remove it all the way, and you can feel right here, you can probably see the shadow. You can feel where the whole bottom can separate and be pulled out. And it's hot glued in. If it's like every other Lemax base, it just separates from the bottom. Probably should have turned this thing on at the beginning. This is one of those cheap ones from Amazon. And then I went online and found a 3D print kit to make it work on 20 volt batteries for DeWalt. So it works nice, it just takes longer than normal to get up to temperature. The 120 volt models are way faster. There we go. Now she's toasty. And I'm going to glue the front as well, as not just the back like they had it originally. I'm gluing all the way around so I can get a bead all the way around as fast as I can, since this glue cools quickly. Now, if you're really anal about it, you can clean the hard glue off. I'm not going to, as you can tell, since I've already re-adhered this. You can use a scraper blade for an X-Acto knife, which kind of looks like that. Or you can use a Dremel with a sanding wheel. Just carefully, just go around and remove the hard glue from both the resin top and the plastic bottom. Alright, she should be good. I can lift it by the roof. So that's it. That is how you disassemble the Black Raven Manor to get inside, access everything, repair it as necessary, and everything should still spin, just to show I'm not jamming this, that it's off center. You can see the ghosts are still spinning inside, and if you look closely you should be able to see that hole spinning. Yeah, so there it is, Black Raven Manor. How to disassemble, access, repair, where your weak spots are going to be, and my recommendation would be to leave it dry, as a dry gearbox, so that way you can not worry about anything dripping onto your ghost or dripping onto your circuitry. For those who haven't seen it in the dark, I'm going to kill the other light. For anybody who's new to the hobby that may be interested in this piece, I'm sure there's 100 reviews on YouTube for it anyway, but we're going to do it anyway. There we go. I really like this piece. I like the way they did the lighting on it with the pumpkins and the ghost, the spinning ghost. To me, it's kind of Ghostbuster-esque because of the spinning ghost. Kind of reminds me of the Spectre in the first movie in the library where she's floating. I know that's more than one ghost here, or in the last movie. But I like the lighting. The way they partially illuminate the skeleton. Of course, you can always adjust the light. They do bend. Don't bend them too much. I like the pumpkins. I like the fact that the pumpkins do not pulsate, because I'm so tired of pumpkins that pulsate. Now, if they flickered, that'd be cool, because it'd be like a candle inside. But their lighting of the orange, green, and ultraviolet, or purple, is very well done. And the light that's in here is... I don't even know where they tucked the light in the bottom. Looks like it's down in here. There it is. You can see it in the camera. Yeah, it's down inside. So, there it is. how to work on your Black Raven Manor if you have one. Hopefully this is educational. Relatively short video compared to most of them. And we're good to go. Till the next one. Thanks for watching.